Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of the Culturally Controversial Podcast, man. I'm your host, Simply Nicholas87, with my co-host, Mr. T. Harden, and my co-host, Mr. D. Ron 2000, man. What's going on, fellas?
How y'all doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How about you, my brother?
Doing great, doing great.
Awesome, awesome.
Hey, for all the new people out there, if y'all hadn't subscribed to the channel, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Share the video, like this video, man. We on the road to 100. Salute to everybody that subscribed to the channel. We appreciate the support from both platforms. And you guys got anything to say? You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I do. Not necessarily about what we're going to be talking about, but a couple of things. First of all, a false report came out that Biz Marquis had passed away at age 57. That story was later retracted that he is in medical care, but he is not passed away. So, of course, Biz Marquis and anybody that who's dealing with illness, that's dealing with illness or dealing with struggles, I offer prayer to lift it. I say that we lift them all up in prayer, and that the hand of God comes down upon them and heal them from whatever ailments are protecting them. Biz Marquis or any loved ones of anybody we know that's listening, we ask God to lay healing hands upon all of them. Also, in the wrestling world, the Patriot Dale Wilkes passed away today. If you watch WWE back around like 1997, he made a run during that time. He
For
wore a mask.
Columbia?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for Columbia.
the
He
Kurt
wore the
Angle music.
yeah with the red, white, and blue and stuff. He passed away today from a massive heart attack at age 59. Nick, were you aware of that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it broke about 2 hours ago.
Oh man, prayer
Yeah,
to the
he,
family. I
yes,
remember the Patriot.
he played. He also was Dale Wilkes also played football for the University of South Carolina as well, Columbia, South Carolina native. So prayers to Biz Marquis and to the friends, family, loved ones, anyone who's listening who's suffering from illness. Again, we pray that God lay healing hands upon them, and prayers to the family of Dale Patriot Wilkes.
Absolutely. Uh, D, you got something to say?
No, I'm good. Just letting y'all know that any day now. Should have my little man here, so I'm just playing the waiting game.
Oh
Oh, you're
man, little
expecting?
man on the
You're
way.
Oh yeah,
you're expecting? Okay, so
oh yeah.
okay, so this is you guys first.
Third,
Oh man, you might get ready to buy a new house then to make some extra room.
that's it. I'm shutting off. So
And you don't be like
no,
Jordan where you walk away and come back. All right.
nah,
Hey,
uh,
Wah.
well, like man, I know you're excited, man. I'm happy to hear the great news, man, and hoping everything goes smoothly, and I'm sure it will.
oh yeah, it will.
All right, I'm gonna get into today's topic, man. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and say this because I want to get this off my chest, and I feel like it should be said about Chris Paul because this is what the topic is about tonight. At this point, how I feel like people should now take that bad light off of Chris Paul. Give that man some respect. I can't do nothing but respect it. He's probably the only player I know that didn't have to join a super team or beg to be on a super team or big three or whatever you want to call it. I get it. The man been in the league for 16 years. This is his first NBA Finals appearance. As y'all know, they did finish off the Clippers last night in good old fashion, as usual for the Clippers every year. Uh, I just feel that people should now give that man some kind of respect now, because a lot of people wrote him off to be, oh, he's done, he's washed, he's this, he's that. I just don't see that. I get you're a 16-year vet, but give that man some credit. He balled out last night. I didn't see that coming from nowhere. He balled out. Clippers got destroyed. I'm gonna call it what I want to call it. You guys can take the floor. You got anything to say about it?
I think
Floor
he's
is
always been. Oh, sorry, you go, Darren.
No, well, no. I'll say this. To me, with Chris Paul, he's always possessed that leadership, you know, mentality. Now, what I see as when it comes to teams that he played for up until now, they, from my opinion, let me say this: they didn't try to build upon him to where they can get to that caliber.
Yes, agreed.
In in the sense that where he's going in now, yes, he had a relationship with Money Williams. Um, he probably understood a lot of dynamics as far as the Suns and what they had and the tangibles that they had that he can be a variable, very good asset to. It just finally came into place. Sadly, his situation being a 16-year-old vet is bittersweet that he is there now. I'm definitely happy for him. I always respected Chris Paul, even though some people don't like him, but it just he has the when I say the old soul of old NBA players where he's a competitor. He's not about being buddy buddy on the court like a lot of these modern day players are now. He just wants to go out there
Amen.
and make his team
Yeah,
better around him. And that's what you don't really see too much in today's NBA. A player like Chris Paul, and with that, don't get me wrong, there are great players around him, but he's just the missing piece that actually what a lot of teams might need to get them to the level they are right now.
I agree. He's a true point guard. And for many, many, many years, you could argue he was the best point guard in the game, or you could at least say it was for many years it was neck and neck between him and Darren Williams. And then of course Darren Williams kind of faded out, but Chris Paul still
yeah,
stands. As far
Yeah.
as the respect factor is concerned, I've always respected him. And going back to what you said, now he's not one of those buddy buddy, let's be friends guys. I remember years ago when he was in New Orleans, or when he first got to the Clippers and they were playing against the Lakers, and after the game, Paul Gasol kind of grabbed him by the head and just kind of gave him like a buddy like head rub, and he yanked Paul Gasol's hand off his head and just looked at him like he was crazy, just like I'm not your little buddy. And that's the competitive spirit that he's always had, even dating back to his time at Wake Forest. I think a lot of people don't like him. He's not really like he doesn't come off like a really friendly guy. He comes off a little prickish in his personality. Like you said, he kind of has that '90s vibe about him, where he's kind of a grumpy, prickly kind of personality, not this let's hug and let's all be friends type thing. So I think that rub a lot of people the wrong way. As far as when people try to knock him, I remember a few years ago saw he's never been to the conference finals. And then after he got to the conference finals, well, he's never been to the finals. So now he's in the finals. And now they're saying, well, yeah, he got to the finals, but they did it against teams where people were hurt. It's always where the dislike for him is so strong that where people like to move the finish line or move the point of reference just to discredit him. And even if you want to argue about prior shortcomings, I always tell people this: only one team wins the championship every year. And I say,
right.
a championship isn't something that everybody's supposed to have. If it was something that everybody could easily achieve, then it would not be special. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it coveted, is because it's so hard to get. If anyone could get it, then what is it worth? It's just like, I know this is going to sound vulgar and bad, but if there's someone that you're looking at to be a potential wife, but any guy can have her, does that make her special or so? And I know that's terrible, but you get the point.
Yeah, I
Does
get the
that make
point.
her special? Yeah, you don't and the same thing if a woman's looking at you as a husband, she doesn't want a husband that any woman can have. She wants a husband that she feel like someone is coveted. And anytime we're trying to achieve something, whether at my job, nigga, your job, Darren, at your job, whatever that is, whether it's a leadership position, whatever it is, there's something in our careers that we try to accomplish, and those are coveted things, and those are not things that any and everyone can have. And the fact that not any and everyone can have them is what makes them so special. So when players like Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton get criticized because they never won a championship, and people try to act like that makes them less, that doesn't make them less. You got to understand that's the most coveted item in that profession. So the most coveted item is rare to win. It's hard to win. So if it's hard and rare to win, that's what makes it special. If it was easy to obtain, if it was a one size fit all where everyone gets a turn at it, then it's not special, it's not coveted, and that makes it not worth having. So in the situation where he didn't win, it wasn't because he was a great player. It's just that he and his team weren't able to get over the hump for whatever reason, whether it was matchup reasons. Many times it's been because of unfortunate and untimely injuries, and they
Injuries,
just
yeah.
was unable to get over the hump. But right now, he's showing himself. His greatness has never wavered. He's always been great. It's just that the ball didn't always bounce his way. And right now, he's got a chance to win his first championship. He's in the NBA Finals, and we're going to see what happens. But I think Chris Paul is a great competitor, a great player, and yes, it's time now for people to to quit trying to use team shortcomings to try to shortchange the man. He's a great player, and it's time for people to acknowledge him.
And I like the fact that you said that, the covenant thing about, it's not easy to get to. Like John, like you said, Karl Malone and John Stockton, it took them their whole careers just to get to the NBA Finals. I don't think. Well, I know Carl played, but maybe a couple seasons after that. But I don't think John Stockton played that much longer. Or did
Another
John
player
Stockton
too.
retired in 2002.
he? 2 years. I'm about to say it was what, about 4 years after their last Finals appearance.
Yeah, Malone
But,
played, I think, two more years after Stockton, I think.
and
Yeah,
I think Stockton came in the league in what, like 84, 85.
Something like that. Wait, I actually think Stockton retired the year before Karl Malone came to the Lakers. The
yeah.
Karl Malone's last year in Utah was the last year that John Stockton played. Then Karl Malone played one more year with the Lakers, is what it was.
Place, yeah. I would say
But
another player that was kind of left off that list. I think AI. Allen Iverson should probably be a guy that could. He was a great player. You know what I mean?
Very,
But
very much so. Had
yeah,
nothing to
yeah.
work, and had nothing around him.
and the same, like you said, the same just like Chris Paul. He, practice. He gets criticized for that one interview about practice.
I mean,
They
rightfully so, but that doesn't take away from how great he was.
yeah,
Nah,
what I'm saying. Like that's one point. Like they try to harp on that, like to demonize his character as how he was as a player. But again, we know when it came to that court time, that game time,
oh,
you
he
saw
was
a
there.
you saw yeah, he gave it his 110% every game. I mean, he didn't just waver. He fought. So
He
And
took
you
a
gotta
team to he took a team to the NBA Finals where Aaron McKee was the second leading scorer.
with
exactly.
with Eric Snow. I think Eric Snow still there.
Yeah, Eric
Well, Eric
Snow.
Snow was the point guard. Eric
Yeah,
Snow was the point guard, and he was Iverson was the two guard. George Lynch was the three.
three. Yep.
Uh, Tyrone Hill was the power forward,
Forward and
and the first 50 or so games, Theo Ratliff was the center. But then they traded him after All Star for Dikembe Mutombo,
I'm talking
and
about it.
Mutombo played like the last 30 games or so with him.
But my thing is with that, like you said, Allen Iverson took a team with probably less than what the Suns have. Honestly, I'll put it that way.
Probably,
that's
probably.
I
Hold on,
would
hold on.
definitely.
I'm gonna do one for you. Probably Drake playoffs.
Dang.
Probably Drake playoff. Come on, Nick.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just using it as a.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure the Suns had the better team. I'm 100% sure.
Hey, Nick. Water is probably wet.
Yeah, it probably is. It's
Let me
wet
get
when
my
you
truth.
freeze.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, man.
but yeah, I mean the for him to take that team, knowing what they were getting themselves into going to that finals anyway. I mean, the fact that they got there was awesome with what they had, but you know,
Yeah. They had the best
you
record in
know,
the East. He won
yeah,
league MVP. He won league MVP that year too, deservingly.
yeah,
Yep.
he did, hands down.
He was the league MVP. Aaron McKee was the sixth man of the year, and Dikembe Mutombo was defensive player of the year.
Yep.
And that was fourth year in a row he won it. He won it the three previous years with the Atlanta Hawks. Played the majority
Yep.
of that season with the Atlanta Hawks, but finished that season with Philadelphia and went on to win it. I
And
will say that what I will say is had Theo Ratliff not gotten hurt, Theo Ratliff was the front runner for defensive player of the year and was with Philadelphia. The reason they traded Theo was because he got hurt and he was out for a substantial amount of time, and they needed to avoid Phil, so they traded him for Dikembe Mutombo.
so I'm gonna ask you this theoretical question: it's a comparison. Like, what do you see? The '93 Suns versus the 2021 Suns.
Well, first of all, in 1993, I was like getting ready to start kindergarten. Um, but it's fine. I know the history of the game, though. Okay, we can look at the talent. Okay, at the guards, what you had Kevin Johnson and Thunder Dan Marley,
Yeah,
and at the forwards, you had Charles Barkley and who was the other forward?
Is Cedric? Was it? I don't know if I'm.
Cedric. You talking Cedric Sabalas? Could have been. I'm not 100%. He played with Phoenix, so I mean, he
Yeah,
played
I
Lakers. Had
might
Sabalas for a little
be
while
the
too,
receiver. Either
and I don't know who.
Cedric. It's kind of it goes get blurry right there, but yeah,
I put it like this: Charles Barkley. That was when Charles Barkley was in heyday. They won 63 games, and he was the league
the league
MVP that year.
MVP.
Yeah, that game seven in the West Finals against the Seattle Sonics, he scored 44 points and 24 rebounds. People, it's funny when speaking of Charles, people look at him as that fat guy that runs off at the mouth on TNT, and people that saw him late in his career with the Houston Rockets, they just see this kind of this little
Yeah,
chubby guy running around. But if you go back and watch him when he was in his heyday, Charles Barkley was one of the greatest players ever played the game. And when it comes to the great power forwards, you got Tim Duncan, Karl Malone, and Charles Barkley. Those are the three best power forwards that ever played the game. Charles Barkley.
he played at what height? Six
They
what?
they list him at 6'6", but he's really 6'4", playing power forward. He actually won a rebounding title at 6'4". No lie.
yeah,
I would probably say that the Barkley's Phoenix teams were probably better, and they were more veteran led. This team, Phoenix team here, is a very young team.
young
It's just
team.
that, but Chris Paul is kind of the glue that gets them going. The thing is, if you take Paul away, that team's not even a playoff team. You got to realize they had individual talent. Like Devin Booker can score, but it was more of like just like when DeMarcus Cousins was playing with Sacramento, putting up scoring numbers, but they weren't winning games. Even when
Games,
he
yeah,
even when he scored 70 points in that game a few years ago, they still lost that game.
Yeah,
Whereas when you bring in a Chris Paul, like Darren said last week, they finally a lot of people don't realize the difference between being a winning team and being a losing team is when you have someone in the backcourt who can control the tempo of the game, or whether in the backcourt or not, when you have a star player who can control the tempo of the game, who knows when to pick the tempo up, who knows when to slow the game down, who knows when to take over and start shooting and scoring, and who knows when to sit back and facilitate and get other people going. That's the difference between good players and great players. A great a great player, for example, when they're at home, sometimes they'll sit back and get everyone else going and get everyone else in rhythm. Whereas when they go on the road, they'll come out shooting immediately because they know that role players don't play as well on the road, and that's to kind of let the team know that I got you. That's the difference between a good player and a great player. Whereas a guy who's just a scorer, all they know is just to score, but they know to score, but they don't know when to score. They're not judicious. They don't know when to. They don't know how to deliberate the game. And what I mean by that, they don't know how to pick their spots of when to be aggressive and when to be passive and when to facilitate. Whereas a great player, LeBrons, your Kobe's, your Jordans, they know when or knew when exactly when to become aggressive and put the foot on the gas, and they knew when to say, hey, I need to get this guy going. Prime example, last night when the Clippers made their run, they cut that game down to a seven. They cut that lead down to a 7 point lead. From that point on, that's when Chris Paul he wasn't facilitating anymore. He took over. He got shooting. He took over that game and went on an 8-0 run by himself and was the one who extended that lead on his own because he knew at that point you couldn't expect the guys like Booker and them to bail him out of that situation. That was one where he said, "I'm the veteran. I'm the leader. I'm taking over, and I'm taking us home."
true. Salute the channel, Teal Town. Yeah, 93 Suns over the 21 Suns. I agree. I agree.
yeah. To piggyback off T. Yeah, there was a more experienced veteran led team. Like I say, we had Kevin Johnson, you know, and
Thunder Dan.
guys like that. They I ain't gonna say they were putting up numbers, but they were definitely a good player before Barkley got involved with the team.
When
So
Danny Ainge on that team too?
who was?
I believe
Danny
so.
Ainge?
I
Yeah,
believe he was.
Yeah,
He
I
played
think
with it.
I
He
think he
coached
was
him
a
a
sixth
little while
man
later
that
on
year.
too.
He was a bench player, but he came off the bench and scored. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right. He was a
How
good
about
scorer
that?
off the bench. I want to say he was one of the candidates for sixth man.
Oh yeah, and they were coached by Paul Westphal, who died like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so R.I.P. Paul Westphal. Yeah, but it was a veteran led team. They weren't old, but they were veteran led. They were good. Even the next year they were good, but they choked against the Houston Rockets. The
Yep.
next year they blew a 3-1 lead against the Houston Rockets. If you ever see the highlight of the Mario Ellie kiss of death when Mario Ellie hit that three to seal it, and then he blew a kiss to the crowd. That was they Phoenix, because Houston had the home court advantage. Phoenix went into Houston, won the first two games in Houston, and they split the games in Phoenix, but came back with a 3-1 lead, and they let Houston come back and win three in a row. And of course,
Yep.
we know Houston went on to win the
Win
championship
title.
against the New York Knicks. They beat the Knicks in seven. They were down 3-2 against the Knicks and won the last two games to beat them in seven.
It's
Yeah,
a
those
Dumas,
those
Marlis, Sabonis,
Yep.
Ainge, Tom Chambers too.
Tom Chambers. That's I watched that duck again today. More I look at it, I think he got a little help from the guy he luckily was above when he jumped.
You talking about that Kevin Johnson dunk on Elijah one?
Tom Chambers.
Who did he dunk on?
Oh, who was it? I forgot who they were playing, but it was I follow a page on Instagram, and they did like
Yeah.
the top 10 Suns plays or Phoenix Sun plays, and that he was one of them. But it was like in the early days. I gotta look it up and see who it was again, but it's one of the famous ones that kind of show a lot of times on like NBA, network.
I used to hate the Suns when they had Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire and all them. So,
Yeah, I
and when
wasn't
they
a
had
big
I hate Mike
D'Antoni.
D'Antoni too. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't stand Mike D'Antoni, cocky bastard.
I'm not a D'Antoni fan because he showed me what he was in
With the
Phoenix,
Lakers.
the Lakers, and
Mm,
Houston is a
Coach
prime example.
coached the Knicks too for a little while.
Yep, he messed that team up.
Yeah.
Yep.
To his credit, the run and shoot style that the NBA plays now, he's the godfather of that. He's the one that kind of kickstarted that on a large scale with Phoenix in that first run. They had some great teams. They just always choked in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, defense is probably kind of the pivotal point with him.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe in defense.
And they played small ball because they had Amari Stoudemire at
Start,
center. They had Sean Marion playing power forward. One of them years they
yeah,
had Joe Johnson at the small. They had Quentin Richardson at small forward, Joe Johnson at two guard, and
yep,
Steve Nash at the point. And they lost
point,
to San Antonio in the West Finals. Then the next year, Stoudemire got hurt, and they brought in Boris Diaw,
yep.
and they traded Joe Johnson to Atlanta. And got Boris Diaw. Joe Johnson was a free agent anyway, so did a signing trade and got Boris Diaw on that.
Was Boris Diaw the one that shot the? No, that was Sean Marion shot the weird free throws.
Yeah, that was
Sean Marion shot weird together. Sean Marion. I'm not trying to. This is not sexist, but like if you ever watch WNBA games, and you know how sometimes you see some of the ladies shoot the ball from their hip pocket, and this is
yeah,
not a put down by any means. A shout out to the WNBA. They work hard too. But Sean Marion shot the ball from his hip pocket in similar fashion to how you see in the WNBA, and that's not a put down. I'm just explaining how he shot the ball.
Yeah, it was kind of controversial. Nah, it ain't controversial. I'm just joking. Probably like that picture you put up on Facebook the other day.
That I put up.
Yeah, you remember the thing about the wrestling thing we were talking about on Facebook?
I
It
gotta
was like
remember what.
the picture you put up it was like a flyer, and it was all the
Yeah,
great wrestlers.
yeah. You don't
And
want to talk about Chris Benoit. You don't want to talk about Chris Benoit. I didn't mention him.
I asked him why he ain't on that. I was like, oh, never mind, I forgot.
I was like, that thing said Heaven Mania. I'm about to say no one. I don't know. I'm not the author and finisher of his face. I don't know I can't tell you where his soul is. I'm not the judge. But I'm talking about. But the way he left here under the circumstances, you know that no one's gonna put a flyer with him being recognized as a heavenly figure. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not here to judge. God has already spoken upon his soul, and I ain't getting into it.
You still think he done that working on that sale? Whatever you were talking about, you still think he probably working on the sale?
Working on the sale. Oh, you talking Vince?
Whatever you were saying, when I was like, I was just asking.
Oh,
You was
When I put working on the hell in the cell. Yeah.
like,
Yeah, man. Hey, I mean,
Um,
yeah, that was a horrible story. We'll talk about Chris Benoit another time, man.
we'll get it another day. I'm trying to think of any other good teams that actually had good players that it took them a while to actually get to a championship. So I know Chris
Like,
Paul took 16 years. John Stockton and Karl Malone took
can't,
They
can't
they
forget
first
about
got
Dirt.
'97. Who?
yeah.
Dirt.
Who? Dirk
Dirt.
Nowitzki. Well, he
Yeah.
got to the finals in 2006. They just choked against the Miami Heat that time. With him and Michael Finley and
Yeah.
then with their they
Steve Nash there. Steve Nash
I'm
there
trying.
then?
Nash was gone by
Nah.
then.
He was at
Nash was
Phoenix
Phoenix.
then.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I'll tell you who was on the team. Some of that I'm trying. They had Sagana Jock was their center that year.
Yeah. Jock was the center. I'm trying to remember
Yeah,
who was that
Kurt,
for.
Jason Terry.
That's right. That's when they got Terry. That's right. He,
Is it
Uh,
Drexler?
Jason
Clyde Drexler?
Drexler went on a Dallas team. Well, Drexler retired in '98.
No, I think he
This is
was saying like as far as like the long term to get to a championship. I'm not Drexler got there with
they got there. Portland got there in 1990,
91.
and then
Was
no,
there?
Lakers got there in '91. It was 1990 and 1992. They
yeah.
Okay.
Portland lost to Detroit in 1990, and then they lost to the Bulls in
Yeah,
1992.
yeah.
Because the Lakers lost to the Bulls in 1991. That was Magic Johnson's last ever um, NBA Finals.
Finals,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And they won the first game, then lost 4 in a row. But back to the who were we talking about before we got off on the Portland thing? With the Dallas team. I'm trying to think who was on that team. I'm trying
Yeah.
because Sean Marion was on the one that actually won the championship a few years later. So I'm trying to think of
I think it
who
was
else.
Dirt. I know Finley.
Finley was
Uh
gone, but I thought Finley was gone by then, or was he
He
still
was
there?
gone
he was
last
still
time
there.
they got the championship.
I'm talking about even when the one they lost in the finals. I think he was in San Antonio by that time,
Really?
maybe.
Was
Oh,
it?
I don't.
I thought he was there.
I thought.
I think Michael Finley was gone from Dallas by 06, because that was '06. Finley was in San Antonio by that time because Finley won a championship in '07 with San Antonio because Finley
Okay.
was with San Antonio because Dallas beat San Antonio in the second round. Dallas was up 3-1. San Antonio tied it up 3-3, and Dallas won Game 7 in San Antonio. And Michael Finley was on that San Antonio team. That was his first year in San Antonio. So I'm trying to think of who was the 2 guard with back there with Jason
Jason
Terry.
Kidd. Was Jason
Jason
Kidd
Kidd,
there?
Jason Kidd wasn't there then.
He's in New Jersey.
I don't know. Well, he wasn't there after that much. Just getting to get there to the end of his career almost.
I think
He was drafted.
in New Jersey because
He
that's
was.
when they went to the finals that year. Well, that year,
Then,
bro.
And
oh,
guess who the coach
that
was?
was 02 and 03.
Yeah.
Byron Scott was the coach Jersey during that time. But
Yeah.
The two,
when
Jason, not Jason.
Avery Johnson was the coach when Dallas lost to Miami in 06.
Stephen
I'm
Nash.
I'm trying to think of who that's like 15 years ago. I'm trying to think of who was. I'm usually good at this. I know Jock was the
Josh
center.
was the small forward.
Josh Howard. I mean,
Yeah.
they played at Wake Forest. Yeah, he was good. He was like an all-star during the time. So Jock was the center. Dirk and Howard were the forwards. And Jason Terry was the point guard. So who was the 2 guard?
Not Doug Christie.
Devin Harris.
Devin Harris? He was on the team, but did he start?
I don't think
I don't think he started.
He might have played at the 2, but they listed him as a point guard.
Yeah, he played starter minutes. Like he and Jason Terry fluctuated back and forth between the point guard. Like sometimes Jason Terry started point guard, sometimes Devin Harris started, but they both played starter minutes, but only one of them started. There was somebody else that they had at 2 guard. I'm trying
Daniels.
That might have. I mean, he was on the team. I don't know if he started, but he was on the team. Marquis, I forgot about him. I remember that time he hurt his neck. Stackhouse might have been gone by then. Stackhouse did have a cup of coffee with them though, but I think he was gone by then.
I don't think he was there at first. No, he wasn't there. I think Stackhouse was in.
Whoever it wasn't somebody who was like an all-star, but it was someone who's kind of just a 10 to 12 point a game type guy. I'm just trying to remember who it was. It's bugging me now. I gotta know before this call is over.
Doug Christie.
No, I'm trying.
Christie was in New Jersey.
No, he was in
Sacramento.
No, he was a Maverick.
Doug Christie bounced around.
At that time?
He didn't. He
Yep.
didn't. If he was, he won't starting though.
No, he was on the bench. They had Daryl Armstrong too.
The former Fayetteville State Bronco who
Yep.
played football as a place kicker at Fayetteville State.
Yep.
God Almighty, I can't believe I'm slipping. Somebody in the chat, help me out.
Yeah, I'm reading
Chat, help us out. We're
I'm
trying
reading
to
the
figure
roster
out
from
who's
that
on
year
this
now.
06 Dallas team. Help us out here.
I'm reading the roster from that team now.
All right, call some names out.
I'm gonna go down the line. The roster year was Daryl Armstrong, Doug Christie, Eric Dampier, Marquise Daniels, the son of Job, Adrian Griffin, Devin Harris, Josh Howard, Umbaga, Roy Marshall, Dirk Nowitzki, Pavel, foreign guy, I can't pronounce his last name. Josh
Spell it.
Powell, Jerry
Spell
Stackhouse, Jason Terry, and Keith Van Horn.
Yeah, Keith Van Horn. I forgot about
Van
him.
Horn, he was washed up. He was on his last leg at that
Yeah,
point.
he was when
Van
he had
Horn.
left New Jersey by then.
Yeah, he gone to Philadelphia for you and played with the Knicks and the Bucks and everything. By then. I'm trying to think, is that Adrian, whatever guy? It was somebody who didn't. I know who Deshaun Stevenson won on that team.
That was like the year two before, I think. He played with Finley. I think Stevenson did.
Okay. It had to be one of those guys you read off. So I don't. It must have been a guy who didn't play a whole lot of minutes, and which means that Jason Terry and Devin Harris were just splitting those guard minutes. Is what it was.
I think they were.
Anyway, I guess we'd never know who actually the starter was, but it's all good.
I think they had that year. I think they changed a lot. That point guard, like you said, I think it changed a lot during the year.
Yeah. Well, I ain't gonna hold the whole thing up over that because that was bugging me. But I'll let Nick get on to what he was talking about.
I'm trying to think of some more players that it took a while to actually get to a championship.
Reggie Miller got there in 2000, and at the time he had been in the league since like 88, 89. So or 87 or something like that. So
I think it was 87. 87. Reggie came in 87.
He was 34 years old when the Pacers got to the finals and they lost to the Lakers.
He played on some good Pacer teams now.
They had teams.
Yeah, they had the teams. They just couldn't never with Chicago.
That goes back to what we're saying, man. Winning championships and get to the finals is not like waking up in the morning and going to. It's not like waking up in the morning and going to check your mailbox. I mean, it's hard to do.
Ray Allen?
He was he was about 32 or 31. Well, when he got to Boston, he was about 30, 31 something.
30,
Boston and Miami.
So. Yeah, but the first one was in Boston.
Yeah.
Who could forget?
Well, don't get me wrong, I like Ray Allen. I respect Ray Allen, but Ray Allen wasn't a guy that was going to lead a team to a championship as the guy. When he was in Milwaukee, and they got to the East Finals when him and Big Dog, Glenn Robinson, when they were in Milwaukee, when they had Sam Cassell, Tim Thomas, the other Irvin Johnson. You got to be a basketball fan to know the other Irvin Johnson.
Not Magic.
Yeah, but Irvin Johnson was a good defensive player and a rebounder. He was a double-digit rebounder. He just wasn't a scorer, but he was solid defending the paint, protecting the rim, and hitting the glass.
Yeah, he was a force. I mean, like you said, he wasn't a scorer, but he definitely impacted the game when he played.
He was a solid starting NBA center. He was solid, and the reason they got as far as they did that year, his defense and his rim protection and rebounding and shot blocking was very important. So Irvin Johnson was not a bad center at all, at least not in his heyday. The other Irvin Johnson, for those listening, not Magic.
Garnett, but I'm thinking about Ray Allen. You know, Ray Allen was good in Milwaukee, but by the time he got, like you said, to Boston and Miami, he was just really just a spot-up shooter. I don't really recall Ray doing anything spectacular.
I mean, that first Boston championship, he was good for about 16 to 17 a game.
Yeah, I was just saying, but I mean, by the time he got to Miami, he was just Ray.
Yeah, he was a role player in Miami, but in Boston, he was a key player. And in Seattle, he was the guy, but those Seattle teams weren't good enough to win the championship. And for you young kids out there who want to know what happened to the Seattle Sonics, that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. A lot of people don't know that. You'll be surprised. So just for you kids out there,
probably about to be Seattle Supersonics again.
If the Pelicans They're talking about New Orleans Pelicans may be on the move, and I feel like Seattle will be wanting them, but we ain't even gonna get into that. But for you kids out there that want to know what happened to the Sonics, that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's why when you look at Kevin Durant's history, it shows with the Seattle Sonics, and then shows them with the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's the same franchise. Just for you kids out there who don't know.
Yeah. Not like the
Anyway,
Bobcats and the Hornets. That's two different friends.
yeah, let's leave it. That's too. Let's leave it.
That's every time I think about that name, man, I get
Yeah,
sick.
let's not even talk about.
Man, shout
I
out to
don't.
Bob Johnson, man. Shout out.
Yeah,
He broke.
yeah. I don't even. I mean, I ain't being funny. I just don't want to talk about that at all. That's just something. That's just one of the things you just want to act like it didn't happen. I just don't even want to talk about that.
It was an embarrassment. I promise
Nick,
you.
Nick, no disrespect, it's your show, so of course you're the leader. I'm gonna follow your instructions. But just for me personally, I don't want to talk about that one bit.
We ain't gonna talk about it. We're gonna leave. We're gonna leave the whatever whatever that alleged team was.
Just let's. It's no use even talking about it. It happened. We moved on from it, and let's keep it that way.
But yeah, we'll just move on from. I think I seen say Chilltown said Garnett was
Yeah,
97. Yeah,
He
he
good.
came in the league in '95, and he didn't. Yeah, and he got to the championship, and his first finals was in '08, so 13 years.
Yeah.
that's a good little bit
To
time.
me, Kevin. People are gonna kill me for saying this. To me, Kevin Garnett was not a franchise player. To
Nope.
me, Kevin Garnett was a good number two, a good guy, a good player to pair with another star to be the anchor, like a defensive anchor. But as far as you could not win a championship building a team around Kevin Garnett, and we saw that year in and year out with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's what
There were
it was only him and what Stephon. That was it.
a couple of years. Marbury Ben got going from there, but even years later, when they had people like Terrell Brandon and stuff, they still had decent teams. And then they brought in Latrell Sprewell, Sam Cassell. They actually got to the West Finals, got number one seed. That was the year Garnett won his first. He won MVP. That's the only MVP he won. They that was in '04, and they got to they were the number one seed, but of course they lost to the Lakers in the West Finals, and they
Yep.
lost to
Yep.
the Lakers in six. I remember when Kareem Rush, the other Kareem, that game six, he hit 6 3-pointers all in the second half and lit them up to go on to win that game. And that's and the Minnesota Timberwolves under Garnett, they never made the playoffs again after that. And then of course eventually he was traded to the Boston Celtics on a draft day trade. And then on that same night, the Celtics drafted E. Jinlian, who lied about his age, but that's another story for another day. They drafted E. Jinlian with the fifth pick, and then traded his rights to the Sonics, and then his rights got traded. So he ended up with the Bucks, where Jillian ended up at. It was like one of them 3-team deals where one guy go here, the pick goes here. Anyway, Garnett ended up. I mean, we know that Ray Allen ended up in Boston, not the thing. E. Jillian ended up in Milwaukee, and he went back to China after 3 or 4 years. But he lied about his age. He said he was 19 when he was really 21, I think.
Tim was the only good coach was Flip Saunders. They never had a good coach.
Yeah, Flip Saunders been going on to be with the big man, so I ain't gonna be too hard on Flip, but to me Garnett was a guy that wasn't a guy who raised his level of play up in big games. Not when he was the guy. Of course, when he was in Boston, you had you had a super team at that point. So I mean, he's a great pick and roll defender and all that. So at that point, his role score some, but mainly be the defensive anchor, and he did that, and they won the championship. But as far as building around Kevin Garnett, that's what bothered me when we try to say these guys are great and these guys aren't great. Because you can say if Kevin Garnett's doesn't join that super team, then his legacy is the same as Chris Paul's almost, and he's getting ripped and criticized. But because he joined the super team and he has a championship, all of a sudden he's a great player. What bothers me about that is when you're talking about greatness. Yes, when you're talking about the greatest, then of course championships come into a factor. When you're talking about all-time greats, like if you're trying to say who's the greatest, this person, that person, of course championships come in as a factor. But championships are only a contributing factor. It's not the end-all, be-all. Like for example, Robert Horry, of course, has 7 championships. But if you ask me but I think it's easy to say that Kevin Garnett's a better power forward than Robert Horry. But Robert Horry's is a role player. We'll even go with Scottie Pippen and Kevin Durant. And I'm not going to get into the whole stuff that happened last week. I'm just talking about the players. Of course, Kevin Durant's a better player than Scottie Pippen, but Scottie Pippen has 6 championships, and Scottie Pippen still is a very good player, 7-time All Star, and the Hall of Famer. So I'm not taking away from Scottie Pippen, but you'll find someone saying, "Oh, well, Scottie got 6 rings," and the guy, Durant, and Durant only has 2. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, Scottie was never the guy. So I'm like, okay, Scottie got 6, but I'm talking about he's not the better player just because he got 6. It's just he played on a better team, and he contributed to a better team. But as far as just the individual player, I'll take Kevin Durant over. If I'm building a franchise, I'll take Kevin Durant over Scottie Pippen any day of the week. But the thing is, people look at a team accomplishment when it comes to winning a championship. A lot of it is circumstantial. A lot of it is timing. A lot of it is what team you're on and who you're with. And who you're matching up against. There are a lot of things that factor into it. It's not like this guy won this amount of championships, so he's automatically better than that guy. John Havlicek has 8 championship rings. Is John Havlicek better than Michael Jordan?
No.
All right, then. So that's the silliness of it when someone try to make it that cut and dry. If you got this many championships, we'll even go with football. Is Joe Flacco better than Dan Marino? Hell no. But Joe Flacco has a Super Bowl MVP. Is Nick Foles better than Dan Marino? Is Trent? No.
Come on,
but Nick Foles, right? So, but he played well in one game. He played. Vince had already led that team to that level. He played well in one game, and from that one game. Hold up, I just read something. I'm gonna deviate from what I was talking about. Yeah, in that one game he played well and got a Super Bowl. Kevin Garnett is the top 5 power forward of all time, in my opinion. Let's see. Let's run through the list. All right, number 1, Tim Duncan. Number 2, Karl Malone. Number 3, Charles Barkley. Okay, so that's 3. And I'm gonna say number 4, Dirk Nowitzki. All right, that's 4. Hell, we'll give him 5. I don't feel like arguing it, so we'll give him 5th. I'm trying to think. Can you think of another power forward that we ain't called yet that you put ahead of him right now?
No, I can't. I ain't even gonna argue with. I mean, he is, if not 5, he's in top 10.
Yeah, he's top 10, not no order.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like this. If he's top, we'd have named 4 that I got ahead of him. If we're gonna say he's top 5, then I'll put him at 5th of power forwards. I'm talking about pure, true power forwards. Somebody might put Kevin McHale ahead of him. Now we're getting
nah, come on.
Why would you say nah?
Nah. I mean, I'm not gonna say. I can't say.
Kevin McHale. I mean, Kevin McHale was a great player, man.
No, I'm not taking away he was a great player. I just can't put him in that list.
I can. But I put like this. I think that's.
So you saying top 5? You saying top 5 or top 10?
I'm saying top 5 power forwards.
I can't.
Because we said. I don't see how you can't. You look at Kevin McHale's numbers, and then you got the numbers and the championships with Kevin McHale. You got the whole package of it. I know you're going to say, well, yeah, but he played with Larry Bird. I mean, I get that. He was never where it was just McHale's team. So
he was a solid player for the purpose of how Boston, I guess, they function as championship teams.
Man, he was like a 20-10 guy year in and year out.
Yeah, I guess like the way he played might have been where, oh shoot, you see that dunk or you see that shot he made.
But but here's the thing. Yeah. I get what you're saying, Darren. But I'm more about the substance instead of the sizzle. It's just like Kenyon Martin got more highlight plays than Tim Duncan has. But you'll be out your mind to say that Kenyon Martin was a better player than Tim Duncan. If you look at them,
I'm saying Kevin McHale is a good power forward. That's my point. But he just didn't have, like you said, he didn't flash like a he wasn't like a dunker or like Sean Kemp coming down the middle and getting that dunk. Makes him stand out in the game. Like one play to make him stand out in the game versus his contributing stats. Like
guys who rely solely on their athleticism usually flame out when their athleticism leaves them. For example, Sean Kemp is a prime example of when his athleticism left him, he flamed out. Blake Griffin, when his athleticism left him, he flamed out. If
Yeah.
I think that was.
I feel the same way that's gonna eventually happen to Zion Williamson if he don't lose some weight. When that
I think that
athleticism
was crack.
huh?
I think that was crack for Sean Kemp. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but his athleticism still left him. Whether crack or alcohol caused it, he still lost. He gained weight, and lost his athleticism. When his athleticism left him, so did his game. Same thing with
Yeah.
Blake Griffin. When his athleticism left, his effectiveness left as far as being a star player. Whereas guys who have high basketball IQ who don't rely solely on their athleticism. And by the way, don't take that the wrong way because I'm not trying to insinuate anything about when you mention IQ, given who I'm talking about when I say Mikhail, because I don't want that to go left and someone think I'm meaning what some of the pundits mean when they say that. But I'm saying that guys, like for example, when Michael Jordan got older, his athleticism wasn't where it was in his heyday, but he still had high basketball IQ. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. Same thing with LeBron James now. So same thing with a Chris Paul. That's because they still have that high basketball IQ and they still have basketball skill. When your athleticism leave you, that's why it's important to be skilled, and that's why a lot of college recruiting coaches sometimes they rather recruit skilled players than the best athletes. Right, because when you're judging someone solely on athleticism and trying to build around that, you end up with Tyrus Thomas.
Oh, come on, man.
That's now you going back to what's called again?
Here we go.
You going
so what?
Dog, that
What I do?
that's Lord, please. You just bring back up bad memories again.
So when it comes to Tyrus Thomas, I know at LSU they got to the Final Four with him and Big Baby Davis, but they beat Duke in the Elite Eight, I believe. Tyrus Thomas was the second pick in the draft, and it was just solely on his raw athleticism.
Yep.
There's several guys who got drafted. Guys like Thomas Robinson, who's like the fourth pick in the draft. Derek Williams that used to play for Arizona, guys like that. There were several guys in that era from we can say from 05 to 2010 or 11 or so that were drafted high solely on their raw athleticism, and they had no skill, but coaches GMs raved about their potential, and they drafted them anyway, and look at what they ended up as.
Gilchrist.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That's a good.
It's a list of players that's like that, you know. But
yeah, they shouldn't even be in the NBA. They're just raw athletes and have no game.
Yep. But that's
why. Do you think that was the case for Greg Oden?
No, Greg Oden.
No, man, he got hurt, man. The man made a glass.
He just it's just like if you look at Embiid. Like luckily Embiid kind of got to a point where he could play and he's showing his IQ, you know.
Yeah, like, but Embiid is very skillful though.
Yeah, I mean, for
Embiid has the face-up game of Chris Webber and the footwork of Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon.
I mean, that's you know, you don't see that's very rare. I mean, in any position in NBA today, nobody has that you know anything comparable to him right now.
Yeah, now to be fair, Greg Oden was never going to be the offensive player.
No, I know that.
But Greg Oden could have been what DeAndre Ayton is.
Absolutely.
And I think it's kind of a similar game. I think when Greg Oden, Greg Oden wasn't a bad player. He just never played. When he played, he just couldn't play a whole bunch of minutes. When he played, he wasn't bad. He played his second year with him and Joel Prisbilla were up there in the front court together, and he was solid in the minutes he played. It was solid. He wasn't bad offensively. He gave me about 11 or 12 a game, 8-9 rebounds, and that wasn't a lot of minutes because they had him on a minutes restriction. When Greg Oden was available to play before his body completely shut down, he could play. He's a guy that let's say if we take the injuries away and he was able to have a healthy career, he could have been a 14-10, 15-10 kind of guy, 2.5 blocks. He could have been what DeAndre Ayton's giving you now. Because DeAndre Ayton's not a guy that's going to score 38 points in a game, nothing like that. But last night he had 16 points, 17 rebounds. There were other games in the series. He had like 19 points, 22 rebounds. Games where he had 15 points and 15 rebounds. That's what Greg Oden.
He's a glass cleaner, of course.
Right. Yeah. That's what Greg Oden would have been. Right. Whereas Joel Embiid has a beautiful offensive game. That's a different type of breed. But Greg Oden could have been effective in the same vein as DeAndre Ayton is now. But unfortunately, his body never allowed him to be that.
Yep. I feel bad for him and I think Brandon Roy too. I think Brandon Roy is going to be
just a case that I hate. That man, he was a special talent.
He was
Yeah, I
good.
just say this injury bug got him bad.
His knees, man, he didn't have any cartilage. Even coming out of Washington, he
Yeah,
already had like 2 knee
He's all
surgeries
right.
at the University of Washington. Then by the time he got to Portland, I mean, he had no more cartilage left. He still
Yeah.
made 3 All-Stars. He was still good. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't ever think he was going to be like
No,
great,
no,
great,
no.
like
I'm just
lead
saying
Portland to a champion.
he was good. Like
He was very
in his
good. He was
right.
good.
Yeah.
Man,
I think they got
Portland
in the playoffs when he was there a couple
did
times.
get several times.
Yeah.
Those Portland teams really survived having their two. You got to realize what a Portland team went through. They drafted Greg Oden in what
yep.
year? '07.
Oh,
Well,
seven.
I'm gonna give you the exact year. Give me a second. They drafted Brandon Roy in '06 and drafted Greg
Yeah.
Oden in '07. They're 2 lottery
So
picks. Those two guys were the cornerstones that their franchise for the next 15 years are going to be built upon. And both of those guys' careers got cut short with injuries. But
Mm-hmm.
then, but still in '06 when they drafted Brandon Roy, they also traded to get LaMarcus Aldridge. So they
yep.
had so they still had Aldridge there. And then a couple of years later, they drafted Lillard. So they were still able. They still survived all that and still made the playoffs for like about 8 out of 10 years, something like that. They still were a solid playoff 50-win team year in and year out, despite drafting 2 cornerstones who flamed out because of injury. But they were able to acquire 2 more and still keep it going with Lillard and Aldridge. And still,
I
and
think
to me, Kevin Pritchard. I know he ended up losing his job, but Kevin Pritchard did a hell of a job still preventing that team from falling apart, that franchise from falling apart after all that happened.
I think what I was gonna say about the whole situation. I felt like when Weston Carl left Portland, his career just started going down anyway. But I mean, he was decent in Portland. LaMarcus Aldridge.
He
He was
played well.
decent. Too.
Well, you got to realize he was about 31 when he went to San Antonio. He still played well his first couple of years there.
He was
Of course,
decent.
he was still averaging like 19 points a game and stuff. He was very good there after Duncan retired. They won 62 games with him and Leonard and Parker and them there. And they lost one of them years. Leonard got hurt against Golden State when Zaza Pachulia stepped on his ankle. I don't care. Nobody said he was shooting a three, and Zaza Pachulia undercut his ankle and did it on purpose and
And ever
took him out of
since
the
then,
series.
he been on what they call what the NBA call it now.
Load maintenance and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But I don't.
low.
Zaza Pachulia is a dirty player, and Zaza Pachulia undercut him,
Yep.
and he should have been called for a flagrant foul and thrown out the game. He did it, and he injured the man, took him out for the series, and because San Antonio had a 22-point lead at the time that happened, that was in Game 1 of that series. There was another
Yep.
year San Antonio won over 60 games. Aldridge was there, but they got upset by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder ended up blowing a 3-1 lead to the Warriors the next round. But that was they had some good years with Aldridge in Portland. I mean, well, of course in Portland, but in San Antonio.
San
But
Antonio.
but the last couple of years, he's been getting older, man. He's like 36 years old now. So then he signed with the Nets, and then he found out he had a irregular heartbeat or something like that.
Yeah.
So he quit playing.
Think
But
Chris Bosh was
Lamar,
another decent one.
LaMarcus Aldridge was like a 7-time All-Star, by the way. I think something like that. By the low standards of the Basketball Hall of Fame, he should get in because the standards for the Basketball Hall of Fame are as low as they can get. Tony Kukoc is in the Hall of Fame because they have a quota system.
How?
Well, I'm gonna tell you how if you let me. They have a quota system in the Basketball Hall of Fame. So you have to have like college people, like college coaches, people from international basketball, people from the women's basketball. So he got in on that international quota. Vlade Divac is in on the international quota as well. So when you have a quota system, that's how undeserving people get into Hall of Fame. You got a lot of marginal talents that are in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. What the NBA needs to do, they need to do like NFL. They need to have their exclusive own NBA pro basketball. They need to have a Pro Basketball Hall of Fame that's sanctioned by the NBA. And what they should do, everybody who's in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame that played in the NBA, grandfather them in, and then from then on out, have a stricter criteria on who gets in and who doesn't. Grandfather anybody who's already in.
That NFL. Now, I was gonna say, but that NFL, that one's starting to get kind of extra too now. Shit,
but you got to realize
this past year.
Well, you got to realize now with NFL, offensive numbers are starting to get inflated because of the rules. So once upon a time, you didn't have a whole bunch of receivers with 10,000 yards. Now, but now any decent receiver is going to have 10,000 career yards. So now 10,000 yards. Now same thing. Well, I was going to say same thing with running back. Running back now, a running back 10,000 yards is going to certainly get in now because you don't have that many 10,000 yard running backs. People don't run the ball as much anymore. But with receivers. the receivers' numbers are inflated now, and the quarterbacks' numbers are inflated now as well. So, but especially receivers. So, it's receivers one of the hardest positions to get people in the Hall of Fame on because you have so many. That's why guys like Michael Irvin had to wait so long. That's why guys like they didn't like T.O., but he had to wait. Marvin
Yep.
I
Harrison
don't
had
see
to
how
wait a couple of years.
T.O. shouldn't have had to wait, dude.
And Isaac Bruce in or Torrey? One of them, Isaac Bruce or Torrey Holt. I
Isaac,
think Torrey,
I think both of them got in.
but one of them had to wait a little while.
I think
Isaac Bruce probably had to wait.
I
I think
think
Torrey
Right.
Holt just got in not too long ago.
Yeah, so Isaac Bruce had to wait. My point
Yeah.
is, these quarterbacks their numbers. I mean, these receivers numbers are so high now because the way the game is played, to where you're having a lot of receivers having to wait because there's so many of them with good numbers. Whereas back in the day, like John Stallworth only has like 6,900 yards, but he's in the Hall of Fame. But the game was played differently when John Stallworth played. Same thing with Lynn Swan. Lynn Swan's numbers are something around a little bit less than that, but Lynn Swan's in there. But this because they played on 4 Super Bowl teams and they were the top targets of Bradshaw when they did throw the ball. So and back then you weren't throwing the ball 40 times a game. Now when a quarterback gets 300 yards, sometimes quarterback now had 300 yards and they got beat 30-13, but still had 300 yards because the way the game is played.
Yep.
That's true. Do you
So,
ever
so
think what's the name brother gonna get in the Hall of Fame?
who?
Sterling Sharp.
No,
Shannon Sharp brother.
Yeah.
no, no.
You don't think he will?
Didn't play long enough.
Yeah, he
No,
had
he didn't play
got
long
him
enough.
too.
And the only argument you can say Gil Sayers is in and Terrell Davis is in, and they didn't play long either.
Nah, Terrell
So
Davis didn't play that long at all.
Terrell Davis had 4 good years, and he played 7 years. Only 4 of them were good because he was
Yep.
injured the last 3. So, but he's in, and like I said, who's the other guy that was in?
Gale Sayers.
Nigga.
Gil Sayers is in. I think Cam Chancellor's going to still get in, even though he had a short career. I think Cam Chancellor will still get in.
Oh yeah, you know
Uh,
he's good in.
there's some guys who are still going to get in because Patrick Willis, I think, will still get in. Luke Kuechly's still going to get in. There's some guys that
Luke Kuechly better get in.
he'll get
Yeah,
in.
they better
Uh,
say.
he'll get in, but because they were guys who were so great in their short. Megatron, if he ain't already in, he'll get in. Guys, Calvin Johnson is what I'm talking about. There are a lot of guys. Some guys that they were just so great, even in their short amount of time. Because what happens, a lot of times you might have a guy who played 15 years but only had 6 great years, but he gets in the Hall of Fame based on those 6 great years he had. So if a guy played 7 years or 8 years and had 7 great years, they still had the same amount of great years and should be in. Is to me, it's
Oh,
depending on how much.
he got inducted this year.
Okay, deservingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make that clear. Deservingly. So
Yeah, he
he was.
definitely. If anybody else,
So I mean,
he
and like
deserves it.
right. So there's certain guys I think are going to get in regardless. But if Sterling Sharp ain't got in yet, he ain't getting in. After a while,
Now,
he ain't gonna be on the. After a while, he ain't even gonna be on the ballot. They're gonna have to.
yeah, they
They,
just let my man from the Cowboys get in. The dude that Drew Pearson, he just got in. You didn't play
and the
much.
only
He
and the
didn't
only
play
and the
much
only
like the
and the
fucking
only
70s.
and he didn't deserve to be in. The only reason he's in is because in that era he played on 2 Super Bowl teams with Roger
Team.
Staubach, and that was
So,
and that was
yeah.
that was a, that was a beloved team. And so at
Yep.
that time, and so he got in on nostalgia, just like Kenny Stabler. God rest his soul. Kenny Stabler got in on. They put Kenny Stabler in right after he died, and they put him in based on nostalgia. Kenny Stabler was not a Hall of Famer. It's just that he played on some great teams with the Raiders under the great John Madden, who's struggling with his health. So prayers up for John Madden. He played on John Madden with those Raiders teams, and they won a couple Super Bowls. And so people remember Kenny the Snake Stabler
Nick
as the Super
Saban.
Bowl champion quarterback, but he was okay. He was all right. It's just that he played on great teams, and they put him in there post mortem after he died, and all of that was based on nostalgia. Same thing with Drew Pearson. He's in on nostalgia. I don't think that you would say that he's truly deserving to be a Hall of Famer. There's a lot
No,
of politics when it comes to Hall of Fame. A lot of it is how well you're liked, how popular you are. Because the main reason T.O. had to wait is because he was a jerk. And yes, he's a jerk, but he's still a great player. And the
yeah.
thing about it, we're evaluating what he did as a player. We're not evaluating how much of a jerk he is. Yes, he's a jerk, but
That was that thing. That's why I guess that was his whole thing about. Now, if y'all voting on me as stats, yeah, I probably been in, but I didn't know we were having a popularity contest, which I get.
right. But you got to realize the people who voted in the Hall of Fame is the Associated Press. The Associated Press is the media. So, and the sports media, well, any media, but it was specifically the sports, they control the narrative. They're the ones who control the narrative of what we think about players. I'm gonna give a prime example. with Kevin Durant, and I'm not taking anything away from Kevin Durant. They've been saying things like in this playoffs, Kevin Durant was the people's champion. This, that. Salute Kevin Durant. I'm not knocking him. He played great in the playoffs. But if that was someone, let's say if that had been Chris Paul and they would have lost in the second round, the narrative would have been like Chris Paul can't. He's not a winner. He can play, but he just can't get his team to where they need to go. But when it's Kevin Durant, it's like, oh man, he was so great. Even though they didn't win, he looked good in defeat. My point is, it's based on how they like you versus whether they don't like you and how they spin things. And the way that was spun as if Kevin Durant was a great warrior and he left it all on the floor and just came up short. Whereas when it's someone else, they would use that as a point to criticize him about how he can't win the big one. And to me, that's just a microcosm of how sports media controls the narrative. And so when they control the narrative, they control the perception of what people think of players. Even like when it comes to quarterbacks, like for example, the sports media narrative presents Kirk Cousins like he's an elite quarterback. When Kirk Cousins he puts up numbers, but most of the time he's losing games, and those are empty. Those are a lot of empty calories that come with Kirk Cousins. But then when you take that,
they don't talk about the interceptions he throws.
Oh yeah,
right. But then when you take a guy like Cam Newton, I'm talking about in his heyday when he was and Cam Newton was in his heyday. Cam Newton was a very good quarterback, but stylistically it wasn't aesthetically beautiful like how you think of traditionally. And then with the stigmas that come with black quarterbacks that you throw with it, they use all. And then when it comes to the controversial way he dresses, the way he dances and all that stuff, they took components of his personality they didn't like and muddy all of that together to create a narrative of how he's not that good or how he's just all right. But then you take a guy like Kirk Cousins, who never even gets his team to playoffs, might get his team to playoffs once every blue moon. And that Minnesota team, and I don't want to hear he didn't have anything around him, that team was stacked. He was supposed to be the person to get them to the Super Bowl. The year before he got there with Case Keenum, they went 13-3 into the NFC Championship game, and we know that Case Keenum is not a starting NFL quarterback. So when they signed Kirk Cousins to $84 million guaranteed, that was supposed to be the guy. If they got to the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum, it's like Kirk Cousins is supposed to be the missing link, the guy who gets them over the hump after just missing the playoffs in Washington. He goes there in his very first year, they don't make the playoffs. So my point is, he's not a winner. He's a 500 quarterback who rarely makes the playoffs. He's won one playoff game in his entire career, and he's been in the league over a decade. But yet he's presented he's presented like he's a top tier quarterback when he's never accomplished anything and never led his team to anything. I'm not talking about Super Bowls. I'm just talking about winning seasons and playoff appearances. They're few and far between. But yet but that's a narrative that the sports media creates. So when the sports media is driving the narrative, that narrative even drives even post career. So now when we take that narrative that was with someone during their career, it lives with them forever, even into the end of their career and after their career. So now we're talking about the afterlife of their career. Those stigmas are still with them. So if you have a negative stigma in the afterlife of your career, that stigma is still with you, and you're still viewed as that he's this because that's the stigma he carried. And then a guy who may have not been as good but carried the stigma of being great, even in the afterlife of his career, the stigma of greatness is still with him. So when they're being evaluated for post-career accolades, those evaluations are still based on the stigma that stays with those players. So if someone was saying you were a great player when you played, whether you were or weren't, if that's the stigma that's with you, when you're evaluated for the post-career accolade, they're still going to look at you like he was great. He is a Hall of Famer versus this guy. He was just all right. We didn't like him. This is the narrative that was on him. And we were like, he's not a Hall of Famer, or he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has to wait. So that's just like just like your reputation, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the church. The great Harold C. Smith, I'm sure you hear every time you see one of your loved ones going to the ground, you hear him read a poem about reputation and character and all that. That reputation, once it's established, it will never, ever, ever, ever leave you, for better or for worse. So once that seed is planted that you are this, once that label and that stigma is placed upon you, that will be with you all the days of your career and thereafter. And when you have one body who determines who's in the Hall of Fame, the body who determines who's in the Hall of Fame is the same body that controls the negative of how you're perceived. And when that happens, that's how you get the politics and who gets in the Hall of Fame and who doesn't.
Agreed.
Agreed. Like, well, I know you speak upon the monster of the media, just like when they couldn't wait. It's like when Cam made that statement that time about that later reporter. That
And And he should, for the record, he shouldn't have said that, but that got blown out of proportion. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's my whole point. But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, it was wrong. Not say that it was right, but as soon as he made that, that was just like their way to just, oh, we finally got him.
Demonize him. They demonized him. They
Gotcha.
vilified
Yeah.
him. They did all they could to make him public enemy number one.
And that, I mean, like you said, like that, I mean, yes, that was kind of a, it not kind of, that was a sexist statement to make in this day and time, but
I'll say it was an insensitive. I don't
yeah,
want to say. I don't want to say sexist. The reason I say that is because when you say sexist, that makes it sound like that comes off with the intent of a malintent. I think he said it flippantly. It wasn't a smart statement. It wasn't a considerate statement, and it wasn't necessarily an intelligent statement because it was an assumptive statement, assuming that a woman wouldn't have not intricate knowledge of the nuances of football. So yes, the statement was inappropriate. The statement was assumptive, and the statement was unfair and unintelligent. However, it wasn't a villainous statement, and he was vilified as if it was an intentional um, um, villainous statement, and he went from QB1 to public enemy one just like that. But
yeah.
continue.
Well, I mean, it was vilified as that, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that it was, but the vilification of how it was perceived, that's what they try to make him seem like in that sense. Not that it was, but again, that's the perception that was painted when he made that statement. So with that, again, you have to understand, like, not to go into what it is. It is what it is when it comes to, again, a Cousins and a Cam Newton. Even though we know who's the better quarterback, talent wise, and also again, Cam was a great leader to a degree. He learned to be a good leader in time with the Panthers. So especially
Cam Newton accomplished far more than Kirk Cousins have ever accomplished.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's not even
No, no,
arguing.
yeah, yeah. I don't. We ain't worried about how he dresses and all this stuff. We're just talking about
yeah,
just pure
that's what
football.
I want. I wasn't really talking about the dress, just the game. The game. It doesn't matter what he does because you your own person, you your own personality. That's who
Yeah,
makes who you
and
are.
here's what people fail to realize: when Steve Smith left, look at who the year he won league MVP and took a team to the Super Bowl with Philly Brown
That,
and Ted Ginn Jr. as the starting receivers. I
that
repeat that.
Right.
and that
Most of the
proves
people
the
out here,
point that as a
Philly
quarterback,
Brown's not even in the league anymore. But go ahead.
yeah, that proves a point as a quarterback that he was a quarterback. He he made the team better around him. It wasn't that he needed pieces to help him win the game. He put his players in position to help him win the game. And
Then 2 years later, in 2017, made the playoffs again, won 11 games. They traded Benjamin in the middle of the year. The starting receivers were Philly Brown and the guy played the Patriots now too. He stayed hurt all the time. Demir Bird. I'm talking,
Bird, yeah,
yeah, those are your starting receivers. Then he took them to the playoffs again with that.
and
So
Philly
from the
Brown.
time, yeah, from exactly from the time that Steve Smith left 2013, he had like a different starting receiving corps almost like every year, and neither one of them were even barely
Yeah,
quality NFL receivers. Most of them were special teams quality receivers, not special teams, but I'm talking about in the sense of talking about number one receivers.
Right.
Um, if you look at the offensive line, how bad offensive line was year in and year out with him, from 2013, his last year was 2019. He missed that all but two games in 2019. From 2013 2019, that's 7 seasons. The Carolina Panthers went 7 straight seasons with a different starting left tackle each year. This is not my opinion. I didn't make it up. This is not how I feel. This is not what I believe. This is
truth.
what I know because this is factual information. They for seven consecutive his last 7 seasons there, they had a different starting left tackle each year. These are facts. Any other quarterback that was under that situation would have failed. And also, furthermore, when people talk about how he started to get injured, talking about because of the hits he took, majority of the hits he took was not when he was out of the pocket running. The majority of the hits he took, he was in the pocket. And the one specifically that really messed the shoulder up was when TJ Watt, which should have been a penalty, led helmet first and hit him in the shoulder against Pittsburgh on a Thursday night game. Newton was in the pocket, dropping back to throw when Watt hit him. When there was a he wasn't picked up, it was a missed block, and he went straight. He went unabated to Newton, hit him helmet first into the shoulder while he was in the pocket, not on the run. That's a product of having 7 different starting left tackles in a 7-year span. That is not my opinion. That is not what I believe. That is
That
not
is
how
a
I feel.
fact.
That indeed is a fact.
Definitely.
But that's not the narrative. That's why I said it saddens me when the people who choose who get immortalized are also the people who control the narrative. So the thing about it, it's just like when you're raising a child to be a productive citizen. They raise the players to be Hall of Famers. They want to be Hall of Famers, and then they raise the other players who they want to be cast aside because if they've already predetermined how they feel about players and they already create the narrative. So when it comes to Hall of Fame narrative, the Hall of Fame narrative has already been created by the people who choose. So the people who are choosing, not choosing objectively, they're choosing people. It's almost like they're choosing people that they've already raised. They're choosing
Basically,
people. Yeah,
it's
they're
choosing
they're
out the
they're
name and not the game.
right, exactly. That's a good way to put it. They're not looking at what's actually taking place on how the person impacted the game. They're looking at their own notes. They're looking at this is what we said about him. So since we said this about him then, we're going to reward him now. So it's almost like it's like someone studying their own work and evaluating their own work to make a choice. Because the things they're doing is not based on what the player did, it's based on the narrative that they assign to that player.
Right.
And so yes, it's political. And the thing about it, one of the things that's human nature is most people don't like to admit they're wrong. So if you've labeled someone this and you've declared and you've made this declaration, you're not going to come back years later and say my declaration was wrong. Since you're the person who made the declaration, you're going to stand by the declaration that you made. So if it's a declaration for the greatness, you're gonna stand by the greatness. If it's a declaration for the worst, you're gonna stand by the worst. So if someone you've already declared is great from day one and throughout their career, you stuck by that declaration. When it's all said and done, and when we're in the afterlife of their career, and it's time to immortalize them, then you're gonna stand by what you said 10 years ago, and it's as simple as that.
There you have it.
Hello, somebody.
There you have it. Preach. Preach.
Nah, my daddy was the preacher, not me. And you got it
Test.
in you too. Your granddaddy, y'all granddaddy was a preacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out there
Big
on
when it's
out
on
there
your
on the road
heart, say what you
down
feel.
below down below Poplar Hill and all that. I know the church at time by
Negro.
BJ's turned out by BJ's restaurant, and you be down there in no time. I know where you at.
And also, don't
Yeah.
forget in South Carolina, he had one too.
Yep.
Okay,
St. Paul.
Yep.
okay. So who knows, man? Maybe we'll have the Reverend Dr. Darren Roan and the Reverend Dr. Charles Nicholas Dunlap, CN Dunlap.
Praise God.
No, but
Praise
seriously, what the and I'm gonna get into something else. And I probably shouldn't bother with this, but it's been laid on my heart. I guess so. I'm going to say it anyway.
All right.
Another thing, another thing about sports media that bothers me: the black men writers in sports media who turn their back on their own values to appease their counterparts. Let me say that. Let me say that one more time. Let me say that one more time. And let me acknowledge what the gentleman said. Bonzi Wells was a heck of a player, and Rasheed Wallace was an exceptional talent as well. So I agree. Bonzi Wells and Rasheed Wallace were excellent players. I was talking about Bonzi Wells the other day because I said Bobby Portis, even though he's a lot taller, Bobby Portis is like the power forward version of Bonzi Wells with their style of play, the scrappy style of play, the toughness, the timely shooting. So I agree. Rasheed Wallace and Bonzi Wells were excellent players. Now back to what I was talking about. I'm gonna say that one more time for those who might not understand me. Black men in sports media who alienate their own values to appease their counterpart. So Tyrell, who are you talking about? I'm talking about your people like your Jason Whitlocks. And for the record, I met Jason Whitlock in Miami in 2020. Very nice guy away from the cameras. The thing, if you meet Jason Whitlock in person, very kind, easygoing, laugh. I took a picture with him. It's on my Facebook. He's like away from the cameras. He is super cool. So I wanna make that clear. Very nice man. So that makes it even worse because once I got to meet him and see him away from the camera, I realized that he really is cool. That he really is a chill, laid back dude. So now you're on the camera and then you're always down on your own people. It's like you're going above and beyond and out of the way to down your own people. It's all. another guy, Anthony Booger McFarland. He's another guy who goes out of the way to to go with the negative stigma, like when he was talking about today's NFL players, or he was talking about they're all divas and they only want to worry about it was something he said. You remember he said that last year, and somebody from the Redskins, excuse me, somebody from the Washington football team, Dwayne Haskins, when he and don't get me wrong, Dwayne Haskins is worthy of criticism. I'm not trying to say he's not, but he went out of the way. I mean, above and beyond to like completely undress him. He went when Myles Garrett first came in the league. He before Miles ever played a game, he went out of the way to undress Miles, insinuating that he wasn't that he didn't have the mental aptitude and the toughness and the intangibles to be an elite NFL player. He went out of the way to undress him, and this is another example of a black guy in sports media who goes out of the way to tear another black guy down just to appease his counterpart. I'm not saying that if you're a black athlete that you're immune from criticism. That is not what I'm saying. Everyone is worthy of constructive criticism. Me, you, Darren, anybody who walks this earth, all of us are subject to criticism. However, when the criticism is one-sided, and it's like when you go above and beyond to criticize the black guy, but you're not putting that same level of energy to criticize others, that shows that you're going out of the way to alienate your own values just to appease your counterpart. And I think we have a problem because the thing is, you always hear people rumble when people complain about how the media narratives are, where they say things like we need more black people in the media so they cater to black people so we can have the right story told. I get that, but at the same time, oftentimes when you do get black people in the media, instead of them adding a voice of diversity, they only add a voice of appeasement. And that voice of
Right.
appeasement is just continuing that same negative narrative just so they can be accepted, and so that they're accepted, they can move up. Because here's the thing, and I know we're getting controversial stuff now, but dang it, we're just gonna talk about it.
Hey, you see the name of the
When
podcast, don't you?
yeah, culturally controversial. So I'm about to start some little controversy in here, and this is not putting down any other group. I'm talking about our own house now. I ain't talking
Yeah.
about anybody else's house. I'm talking about our own folks. What bothers me is that many times, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the media, no matter what avenue or what institution or what entity it may be, many times you'll find a black person who's caught at a crossroads to where am I allowed to be myself and express myself and be true to my values, or do I sell my soul, appease, and allow myself to advance? So what happens, whether it's a law enforcement, and one thing I want to make clear, I got law enforcement in my family. I respect law enforcement. I believe that law enforcement is a necessary component of our society, and I appreciate the things that law enforcement do. What I will say is I'm not anti-law enforcement. However, when somebody in law enforcement behaves inappropriately or behaves illegally, they should be held accountable for their actions. My problem is when you have certain people in law enforcement who are not held accountable for their inappropriate illegal actions, not the institution of law enforcement itself. I respect the institution of law enforcement. Law enforcement is an honorable position. They serve and protect. However, when you have people within the institution who don't follow the vows and the code that they took up, they should be held accountable. So my problem is with their lack of accountability for people who don't honor their badge, not the badge itself. Now back to what I was saying. For whether it's law enforcement, whether it's work, whatever, lots of times when you have black people in those positions, instead of holding true to their values, instead of holding true to a standard, they'll go out of the way to be against their own so they can impress their counterpart. And by impressing their counterpart, they're thinking that's putting them in a position of favor. And by putting themselves in a position of favor, they think that allows them to advance. It's I don't want to draw this comparison, but it's almost, if you've ever read this, I don't know how many of y'all are into Brit Lit, but if you ever read the poem The Little Black Boy, we're gonna go off a tangent. Darren Roan, can you do me a favor? Look up the poem The Little Black Boy by William Blake. Just look it up, and I want you to read it verbatim. This is a little exercise I want to do. I want to break this down. This is the English major in me. And Nick, I'm not gonna hold you all day long. I didn't come to Terry with y'all long, but
Oh no, man.
I want to make a point.
It's
Darren,
do
let
your
me know.
thing, man.
Darren, let me know when you had a poem up, and I want you to read it verbatim. All right? You sound like a man that you're a streeter, so I know you're smart, so you can read it.
Little black boy.
The Little Black Boy by William Blake. Shout out to Mr. Beam. I know he'll appreciate the Brit Lit, my honors English teacher in 12th grade. Shout out to Mr. Beam.
Let me see if I can pull it up. If I got a. All right, I think this is it. The little
It should, yeah, it should say I'm black, but my soul is white or something like that. That's how it starts off.
It
So,
said, "My mother bore me in the southern wild, and I am black, but oh, my soul is white."
read that one more time. Hold on. Let's take it back. I want you to read that line with emphasis.
One more time. I'm just because I'm actually trying to comprehend it while I'm reading it too. So that's the first
We
time.
gonna get there.
My mother bore me in the southern wild.
Yes.
And I am black, but oh, my soul is white.
Just that line right there. Read that one time and put emphasis on it. I am black, my soul is white. Read that with emphasis. Read it like you mean it.
My mother bore me in the southern wild. And I am black, but oh, my soul is white.
Hallelujah. Now keep reading.
White as an angel is the English child, but oh, my screen went out. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. We're gonna get through it.
Breathe, oh light. My mother taught me underneath a tree, and sitting down before the heat of the day, she took me on her lap and kissed me, and pointing to the east began to say, "Look on the rising sun, there God does live, and give his light and give his heart away. And flowers and trees and beasts and men receive comfort in the morning, joy in the noonday. And we are put on earth a little space, that we may learn to bear the beams of love, and these black bodies and these sunburnt face is but a cloud and like a shady grove. For when our souls have learned the heat to bear, the cloud will vanish. We shall hear his voice saying, come out from the grove, my love and care, and round golded tent like lambs rejoice. Thus did my mother say and kiss me. And thus I say to little English boy, when I'm from black and he from white cloud free, and round the tent of God like lambs we joy. I'll shade him from the heat till he can bear, to lean in joy upon our Father's knee, and then I'll stand and stroke his silver hair, and be like him, and he will then love me.
Good God Almighty, Darren, when you're reading that, what you get out of that? Just let's we can skip some of that middle stuff. We're just the part where it said, "I am black, oh my soul is white," and then at the end he says, "When we both here see God or whatever, I from black and he from white,
Yeah.
and I will be like him, and he or whatever." You that last line, read that last line again about "I will be like him." I want that one more time.
Let's see.
It's all
Oh,
right.
I'm
Take
sorry, the last two. And then stand and stroke his silver hair, and be
whew.
like him, and he will be then love me. Oh, and he will then love me.
And
Wow.
he will then love me. So
Well, I
I will
mean,
be. So when we hear, I will rub his head, and I will be like him, and he will then love me.
love me.
Good God Almighty! Let me go there one more time. I will be like him, so let's take it to the top. I am black, but oh, my soul is white. And then we skip all the way down to the end when we cross the gates, and he said, "I will rub his silver hair,
Silver
and
hair,
I will be like him,
and will then
and
and
he
he will
will
then
then
love me.
love me." That whole poem, those last two lines, are a microcosm from the identity crisis that we face within our with some black professionals and within many institutions, including the office, including law enforcement, and in the context we're talking about in sports media. So your Jason Whitlocks, your Booger McFarland's, your guys like that is
Clayton
all.
Big.
You're even sometimes Sir Charles. It's almost like
Yeah, Charles,
it's
Charles Barkley more for sure.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's almost like they want. It's almost like they want so bad to be like him, so he can then love them. And here's the thing: And this is not me labeling any particular group, but if someone love you, they're gonna love you regardless. They're gonna love you independent of any other component about you if they truly love you. If someone doesn't love you, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what
Yeah.
you give them. It doesn't matter. If someone doesn't love you, they will not love you. Just like if someone love you, they will love you unconditionally. If someone doesn't love you, they will not love you unconditionally. So
Right.
the lack of love is unconditional. So if love is unconditional, the lack thereof is equally as unconditional. And until some people realize that, we will always have the Benedicts in our circle.
Absolutely. Just to say, by like I said, that them first two lines is like, wow. That's I mean, first time actually probably I probably have heard it, but actually reading it, that right there alone, like I said, I got in conviction just reading it, thinking about, it's sad to say that in this day and time we have to look for that approval in this skin color. You know what I mean? And
Yep. This poem is the opposite of Beyonce's Brown Skin Girl.
absolutely.
It's the antithesis of Brown Skin Girl. It is the inverse of Brown Skin Girl. The pride, the the pride that comes in Brown Skin Girl, the self awareness, the level of self worth, the level of self power that's championed in the song Brown Skin Girl. This poem here is the complete opposite in the sense where it champions the lack of power. It champions the lack of confidence. It champions it champions the inferiority complex. It's a foundation. It's built on a foundation that's already predicated on the I am inferior and he is superior, and
Yeah.
I want to be like him so that one day he will love me.
Exactly.
Woo!
It's
In the
looking for
sense
love in
of
all the wrong places.
like like my man say, and we're not going to bring his name up, but the Zaddy approval is all we're saying. The Zaddies, all these Zaddies that these people in the sport world look up to. I mean, it's just being real. It's just
Zaddy.
these
I'm,
Zaddies. All we'll
and I'm gonna
say.
tell you the thing about it. You can still be you and be respected. Prime example: the late great Stuart Scott. Stuart
Yep.
Scott didn't try to be anybody else. Stuart Scott became famous by being himself, and he was adored and respected by his counterparts because he was authentic in himself.
Yep.
Absolutely.
He was originator of his
He was
own craft.
authentic. He was himself, and in his craft, there was a there you could tell that that he never treated his blackness as a burden. He never treated it as something that he had to renounce. He incorporated his foundation into his craft. He
Right.
incorporated his the dialect the dialect that comes from his upbringing. All that was incorporated into his craft. He never renounced who he was. He was himself, and by being himself, that's why he rose to the heights that he rose to. And the thing about it, Stuart Scott was respected by all people. He was respected by black men, white men, Jews, and Gentiles, as Dr. King would say. He was respected by all, and it was his authenticity that garnered that respect. Because the thing is, you can be a person who's not yourself and an appeaser, but again, if someone doesn't love you, they're still not going to love you whether you appease or not. So the
Absolutely.
best thing is
Mhm.
be yourself, for better or for worse. You'll be respected more for it.
Amen. And with that, man, fellas, we are at the hour and 29-minute mark. Appreciate you guys for pulling up tonight. Good topics. Uh, Want to go ahead and get my last word before I get out the floor. Again, Chris Paul deserves respect. If y'all didn't see it then, don't say, "Oh yeah, I've been on Chris Paul." now just because he's there. Be on Chris Paul when he was a New Orleans Hornet. Be on Chris Paul when he was with Lob City or before even touching the NBA, Wake Forest. You know, show that man some respect, just some respect, because 16 years. He probably don't. I mean, I know he wants to win it, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't really bother him if he doesn't. He finally got to where he wanted to be. And with that, I'm gonna give y'all the floor.
I got nothing more. I was glad to be a part of this discussion. I yield the rest of the time to D. Rome.
All I would say is, is I think his fans truly have given him respect, but just like we went into, is the media.
Yeah,
The media is what is not giving him respect and trying to paint that picture. So in my eyes, I always like Chris Paul. But to be honest with you, they play point guards that I know in my time. Like I said, I'm a little older than your guys, so I do remember Isaiah Thomas
The
and
real Isaiah.
real Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons, Bad Boys Isaiah, Magic, of course. I got to see those guys in those times. Probably the best point guards of the times that I can remember going into now. Chris Paul is there with me. He's been probably from the time he's been in the NBA the best. One of my favorite point guards by far. Even being on a different team, I always loved the way he played the game because he puts the game on his back and he'll do whatever it takes. He's not going to rely on his shooting. He's not going to rely on his dribbling. He just relies on how the game flows. So, you know, again, give that man respect, but more importantly, the media needs to show that man respect.
hey man.
Amen.
And with that, y'all, like I said, man, if y'all new to the channel, y'all hit the subscribe button. Hey, hit some likes on this video, man. We still on the road to 100, and we are 14 away. So you guys, keep tuning in. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Come check us out on Thursdays and Mondays, because we got the good stuff for you. Um,
We like
I
we like the new kids on the block. We got the right stuff.
Yeah, we got the right stuff, man. This is what it is. You getting it raw. This ain't no
You're
script. This ain't
100%
nothing. This is us.
authentic.
That's it. Best way to be. Here at
Only way to be.
CCP. Here at the CCP. But with that, man, appreciate you guys for pulling up. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And shout the people out that was in the chat, which is probably, I think it was just Chill Time. But shout out to Chill Time. Y'all go sub up to his channel. He has some dope content as well. Y'all go check my guy out. Salutes to Chill Time. But we about to be up out of here, y'all. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
God bless.
God
See
bless.
you. Peace.